Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm a multi-genre author of romance, horror, and fantasies. I'm starting this series about my attempts to get my spending under control, especially when it comes to my writing, publishing, and promoting of books. I've been watching a lot of amazing budgeting and envelope stuffing videos on YouTube as part of my efforts to do this, but I didn't see much for indie and self-publishing authors like me. It's easy to spend money on my book and to find people to tell me how I'll be spending money on my book, but I want to showcase something that is often getting ignored. How do you do this not only with a small income for your writing, but a full-time job that pays most of your bills? We're going to discuss how I determine my budget for the year, where my money comes from, and how I allot it for use. What should you know about me? There's plenty that I'm sure we'll share in these videos, but what you need to know right now is that I'm in my mid-40s and in a single income home. That's my full-time job. I don't have children, and I'm trying to pay off some large debts. I'll tell you more about some of the debt journey in these videos because there are big changes that prompted me to get this spending under control. I'm recording this at the end of April because in April of 2023, I decided to give the cash stuffing method a try. I know there are a lot of feelings, but this might be a method that works for me. It certainly takes advantage of my love for planners. Since we're focused on my publishing spending, I bought an inexpensive binder on Amazon. It came with envelopes that were pre-printed. Until I can make my own, which I can, I have a laminator, but until I can make my own, I'm using my ample supply of decorative paper to insert in ways that will tell me what each envelope is for. You can see as I work and count all this money in my hands what I'm using all of this decorative paper for. This little tracker, this little binder that I'm using came with tracking slips, so I'm going to be able to track what I'm putting into each of the envelopes. I pulled out all my cash that I have sitting around. That's what you see me counting in this video. Until recently, I've kept cash accessible in the house, but not really organized for any purpose. I have this bag that basically says Unicorn Fund. And I love it, but I need to start thinking of it as more than just the lump sum. I also have my change pack, which is where a lot of the singles, fives, and tens are coming from. This is what I use for events. If I go and I sell books at a craft fair or a marketplace, I bring mostly singles, fives, and tens so that I can make change for people who want to pay with cash. I never know what to expect, but I suspect I'm carrying too much cash because I rarely use most of it. I'm also starting with the $100 I made last month. This is a pretty standard income for me at this point, and not enough for me to even pay off my basic bills. So I do tap into my credit cards and my own savings. The dog is playing. My income primarily comes from Amazon. This is the book income, not my life income. But that's where you can buy my books right now. I am working for some of them on going what we call wide, which is beyond the Amazon infrastructure. But I also sell books at events, and the income from that varies. I have a Patreon where my rom-com readers can have exclusive access to the next book in my series, which will be something I'll be doing for my horror and fantasy series eventually. And then I get income from the events and sales I do with my local bookstore. And then there are other smaller passive income that I get. My checking account that I have for my writing is strong enough so that I think the cash stuffing can work without making me feel anxious about not having any money there. So what I've done is I've also pulled out the extra cash from the previous week. I pull about $100 out every week from my personal spending, and the change goes into different savings challenges. For this video, I'm setting up the envelopes and binders for the first time, so I'm sharing everything that I'm doing. But in the future, each month I'll have one video about the income stuffing because I get paid once a month, and then another about the savings challenges. So I'll save up all the change and do one video for you. My plan is once I complete a savings challenge, the money from that will go into these writing envelopes. So don't worry, I have a great job that allows me to save money in a variety of other ways, as well as retirement. This is not a concern of mine. This is about getting this spending under control. So the spare money from my leftover weekly cash goes perfectly into those savings folders, and eventually it'll become part of all of this. Feel free to ask about any of these things in the comments, but I can't promise you I'll answer them. So, where are my envelopes from? So, I'm trying to do this on a budget, but this cute little iridescent binder came with pre-written envelopes. So until I can get to making my own envelopes with my handy dandy laminator that I am obsessed with, and I'm so glad I can use for this, I've slipped in sheets of my scrapbook paper and cardstock into here with just me writing on it. So what is there? There's a lot. So first I have annual expenses. These are the items I pay once a year. For those of you who are familiar with what I might pay for, there's Canva to make graphics. There's BookFunnel for storing books and doing giveaways and swaps. MailerLite is where I manage my mailing list. And then there are some other ones. These are things that, since they get paid once a year, I only have to worry about. I can build this envelope over the course of a year and then pay things out at the moment they're due. I did make a little list of what I think I'm going to need to put in there, and I have a year to save for all of them, since most of them came in the early part of this past year. So they're mostly paid for. Next is the envelope for my covers and my editors. Since I write in multiple genres, I typically publish 2 books a year. This means I need to hire a line editor and a proofreader, sometimes a developmental editor. But the cost varies on the length of the book and the editor I'm using. For example, my rom-com editor is not terribly expensive compared to my fantasy editor. And I love working with my editors, so I like to stick with them, which means I just have to plan for sort of estimate. And I'm planning on saving about $2,000 a year for the 2 books I publish. You should know this year has already been allocated, so I'm actually saving for the 2024 books unless something comes up, which it very well likely come up because I am re-editing some books and they'll probably need at least a proofreader. Each book needs a cover. My cover designers charge $100 a cover with some discounts for repeated business. But I'm going to add in $300 this year because I suspect there's a chance in one of the next book covers is going to need to start within the same calendar year as the 2 other books are published. After that is taxes. Since I make less than I spend on my publishing, I do often come in at a loss on the publishing costs. And my full-time job does take out my taxes for me. So I haven't had to pay taxes on the writing yet. I still get a refund, but I always put things aside. Since I have an accountant, I do pay her to do some of the tax work for me, like all of the tax work for me, except the collecting of the charges and receipts. But this will probably end up being used to cover the cost of her and her work and her time and energy. But there's an off chance that I might have to pay taxes if I actually make enough money. So I always want to have that aside. And if there is a rollover after the end of 2024's tax season, it will, depending on how much is there, just stay there and I'll allocate other cash to other funds, or it will be moved into those other funds. This is followed by my rent. I am super lucky to have a desk in a shared space where I can go to write, and it costs me about $100 a month. So that means I have to have $1,200 a year, and while 2023 is already budgeted and allocated, I want to be ahead of the game for 2024. Events, the next one, usually costs me $60 if I'm alone. I like to do events with others. My goal is not to save cost there, it's because I'm a librarian and instinctually I want to find every reader their book, but I only write in 3 genres, and a lot of people want books from other genres. So when I tend to invite authors, they're either from different subgenres within the greater genre, or they're in just completely different genres. If you've seen me at events in the New Hampshire and Massachusetts area, you know, I typically have some other romance and horror friends with me. They write for different ages. I increasingly have my friend Lisa, who writes cozy mysteries. So we do our best to create an environment that invites all readers. But it also saves me money. So what I do with one event a month, I estimate that I'm going to be alone and save the $720 that I'll need. Again, this year already allocated and budgeted. This is for 2024. And whatever I have extra will be either held over to the next year or put into other categories as I rebuild it. The next is, and I think I'm going back to the annual expenses because I was focused on the rent at this point. The next section is for stock. And I'm going to get to that. I'm going to speed this up ever so slightly for a period so that you can catch up with you can catch up visually with where I am speaking about. All right, so picking back up here, stock, which I just am stuffing now, is my supply of books for events. It's really easy for me to estimate how much each book costs because Amazon tells me when I order them. So what I typically do is I buy ahead seasonally. I know an estimate of how much I might need this summer, for example, and then I buy that, and then I keep the stock till I need to reorder. So I recently bought enough, I hope, for the summer, but what I will be doing probably off camera before the next video is creating a list of how much each book costs for me to buy. And then as I do events, when I look at the profits from those events, deduct how much money it will cost to replace the books I sold and put those in the envelope. The tech is the next one that I'm working on. This is what I need to make YouTube videos, audiobooks, and other content to promote the books. Right now I'm saving for a better video camera. I'm using my phone on everything, and I think I can use something better. And after that will probably be a new computer or tablet. The extra section is anything that I might need, but I don't have a category yet. And as I get more comfortable with the system and thinking about what I want and making envelopes, that'll all start to make sense for me and I can redistribute it. The last envelope in the binder is the change one. This is where the event change is kept while I'm not doing an event. I only do one a month, so it should stay somewhere safe the rest of the time. What is in there? 20 in singles, $40 in fives, $30 in 10, and I have notes about that both in this and in my zipper pouch so that I can keep track of what I brought with me so I know what I have extra. The last envelope, that's it. That's the change one. This new one we're in is my savings challenge. I bought a set of these challenges. The link will be for this and all the other items in the comments of the video. But I bought savings challenges to help me start doing some fun savings. This binder that I'm using is a 5 size binder, and it's a Kiki K planner. Again, the link, it's one I've had for quite a while. As I mentioned at the very beginning, I'm trying to use content and products I already have before ordering more. Don't you know, I already bought more, so that's fine. But the reason I wanted something this big for the savings challenges is because there's going to be a lot of bills in these envelopes, and I wanted to make sure there was room for all of them. So I just bought these blank envelopes on Amazon, and I will have Amazon affiliate links for the products I bought on Amazon in those below, just for, keep this on the transparency side. You should know I also have a planner obsession. So, as many people find themselves intersecting in this budgeting and saving and planning space, I do have a lot of this product ready to go that I can finally use for something other than sitting on my shelf, which I don't mind. It's just, it's not very useful. So, I'm starting with 4 savings challenges. I have a bunch of others, but I want to just start getting a sense of where things are. So I started with the 1s, the 5s, the 10s, and the $20 challenges. I have a lot of 20s. I like to condense my cash when I can. That's probably going to happen plenty, especially as things start going in the bank. So, yeah, this I think is the $1 savings challenge. And I have a bunch of singles. So the money that I typically have at the end of the week, that's where it's going to go. It's going to go into these until I need more. And then once these challenges are done, I will roll them into the money in the publishing binder. That way, because this is just extra money, essentially. I mean, it's still my money, but it seems like it's extra since it was allotted for spending during the week that I didn't necessarily use. Some weeks I use more than others. Some weeks I sit at the studio and I bring my own snacks from my own kitchen. And other weeks I go to Dunkin' Donuts and get all the food I want for an afternoon writing. And other times I go on adventures and want to spend money. I love buying things. Who would have thought you would have money struggles because you love buying things? So if there's money left, this is where it's going to go. And then in this case, I also put the 10s and the 20s that had been in the the unicorn fund zipper pouch and moved them in. So I'm going to, again, pause and speed this up. And I'm just going to note, I'm probably going to do things this way. I record the video, and then I'll record the audio separately as a voiceover. Because when I watch these videos, it was always frustrating to watch these people count their money and then stop and have long conversations and tell us a story. This way I can do that, and you can still watch me doing the things uninterrupted. It just, I think, changes the flow. Anyway, let's do the speed up on the activity now. All right, so what else am I doing after this is the last savings challenge, the big $20 one? There's a lot in here. When this is done, which might be before the end of the year, because I do get a lot of 20s. This one might be split up between some personal items and some book stuff, just because. So I'm storing the rest of the savings challenges in the backpacks, the back envelopes, just so that they're there for when I switch things over or add them in. I also have some of the scrap paper I cut up into what is essentially money size. And I'm just going to keep a few of them in this binder so that I have them within grasp if I should ever need to create another one or anything like that. I use this Tombow marker to write on most of them, but I also have a silver Sharpie that I use for the dark ones so that people can see them. I've also used these cutouts of my decorative scrapbooking paper to create the fake money that people often use, especially once they condense and take things over to the bank. There will be, and hopefully many of these envelopes, high amounts of money, and I'm not a huge fan of keeping a lot of cash in my house, especially when I have a high yield savings and checking account that get interest for me. by keeping money in them. So the more cash I keep in the house, the less money I'm actually making. And then I found some other ones I had made for my personal binder. I think I was debating between the two, but I found another binder that I can do for my personal stuff. So here's all the fake money I made. I made a bunch of $100, $500, and 1,000 so that I can have them. And I am putting them in my very pretty Pride and Prejudice zipper pouch. I think you get to see, yeah, there it is. It's beautiful. I love it. You should know even though this is on my fantasy channel, my fantasy and horror channel, the romance books I write are modernizations of Jane Austen's classics as rom-coms. So links to them will not be in the video because they are on a completely different channel. The content is there. But if you ask me about it, I will send it to you. So that's it. That's for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Like and subscribe. Feel free to ask your questions. But remember, I may not answer them. And if there's anything you want me to share about the business side of writing and publishing, let me know. I can consider making those videos. And then last, links to the products I use and to my fantasy and horror books will be in the description below. So see you for the next video.